Hello and welcome to this video about GVERSE Geophysics, the new seismic interpretation package for geographics. Today I'm going to show you how to apply different versions of data to seismic sections. I'm also going to demonstrate co-blending that lets you visualize two versions of data simultaneously on the same section. Before I start, a quick overview of how we handle seismic surveys. The survey itself is basically just the geometric information, your inlines, cross lines, and where they are in the world. The actual trace data is contained in a file stored on your hard drive, and you can associate this data file with the seismic survey. This is what we call a version, and you can have multiple versions of data for a single survey. For example, for my F3 original 3D survey, I have four data versions: amperage, envelope, average energy, and semblance. These are four separate data files that I have associated with my survey from the interpretation manager. When I add a section to my 3D view, it shows data from my active version. You can think of this as the default version. For my survey, the active version is amperage, which is what I'm calling my amplitude file. It is indicated in my tree in a bold font and with this green dot next to the version name. I can change the active version from the context menu. Let's set semblance as the active version. And now whenever I add a new section to this survey, it will by default have semblance displayed on it. You can associate different color palettes for each version. Here I have semblance set to show in grayscale by default, which is what you see when I add the semblance time slice. It shows up with the grayscale color palette applied to it. To change the version applied to a section, you can go to the scene tree. The scene tree gives you a list of the contents of your scene. Right now I just have an inline and a time slice for the F3 original survey in my scene. And right next to the section name, you can see the version of data applied to that section. So for my inline, I have the AMP original version, and for the time slice, I have the semblance version. I can click on this label to see a list of all available versions and then simply choose the one I want to look at. I can switch to envelope, and now I'm looking at data from the envelope volume, switch to average energy to look at data from that volume. And when I move this section to a new location, the version stays with it, and now I'm looking at the average energy data at this new inline location. So that's how you can switch data versions applied to any section. In my scene tree, I have an additional option called the active velocity model. This option is slightly different from the rest. First, if you noticed, this does not appear in my list of versions associated with this survey. That's because this is not a physical file that lives on your hard drive. Instead, what this option does is, when I switch to active velocity model, it goes to my velocity model and computes the velocity values along this inline and then displays them on my section. You can move the section to a new location. The velocity values will be recomputed for this new location and will then be displayed on your section. And this functionality is not limited just to seismic sections. We can also display different data on horizon surfaces. Let me add a horizon to my scene, and I'm going to hide this inline so that we can get a better view of our horizon. By default, the horizon surface has time values displayed on it. So the colors here represent the time value of each pick. But from the scene tree, I can choose to display other data types here as well. If I have velocity or depth values computed, I can display those, or I can even drape seismic data on this horizon surface. If I choose custom versions here, I can then, from the horizon's display settings, choose the version of data I want displayed. Let's make that average energy. And now I can see the average energy data displayed along my horizon surface. I can display anything here, including values from the active velocity model. Okay, so far we have looked at how to visualize different versions of data on seismic sections and horizon surfaces. But how about looking at two versions of data applied simultaneously to the same section? We can achieve that using co-blending. Right now I have amplitude data displayed on this time slice. But what if I wanted to overlay semblance on top of it? I can go to the display settings and then turn on co-blending. Here I can set a base version, which is my amplitude, and set an overlay version. I'm going to keep that as semblance. When I move this slider to 100, now my time slice shows only the overlay data, which is my semblance data. When I move it to 0, I can see just the base version, which for this example is my amplitude. But if I put it somewhere in between, now I can see both versions of data at the same time. And I can see how my semblance and my input data interact. This particular blend of semblance and amplitude data is especially useful when picking faults. So I can go to the faults tab, add my active fault to the scene, turn on the pick mode, and start picking. I can navigate to the next location and make my picks on this new location. And so on. Now you can see your fault surface is starting to shape up, and this is just one of the use cases of how co-blending can enhance your interpretive workflows. And that brings me to the end of this demonstration. We saw how to look at different data versions on your sections and your horizon surfaces, and with co-blending you can visualize two data versions on a single section and use that in different interpretation workflows. For more information, please visit our website lmkr.com/GVERSE